Hello and welcome to the Therapy Floor with me, Dr. Ritz.
And me, Dr. Vicky. We are on the floor getting deep into the human experience, unpacking everyday dilemmas through the lenses of two psychologists.
Today's episode is in partnership with a brand that I really love called Snooze. I actually use Snooze with both my babies because they have this snooze pod which part of the cot opens up.
Yeah.
So it attaches to your bed.
Such a good idea.
Such a good idea. And it just meant like I could be close to the babies without having to get out of bed. So they've actually played quite a big part of my life. And I was really excited when they said that they wanted to reach out to their audience and find out if parents and parents-to-be had any dilemmas that they wanted to bring to the therapy floor.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great because parenthood is just such a massive phase of life that you enter into, which as much as you can be prepared, you'll always feel slightly unprepared, won't you?
Just totally unprepared. I think you get all the bits. So you get your cot, you get your stroller, you get your things.
Get all the practical things.
You get your practical things. And you think that's going to prepare you.
Yeah,
and
but there's so much more to it, isn't it? So I think it's a great opportunity for parents to, get some support, some professional support. Really excited about the dilemmas that we've got today.
So let's get started on the first one sent in by the Snooze audience.
Okay.
So this person says, I don't want to make my child have anxiety like I do. I've always been an overthinker. It's turned into more of an anxiety during pregnancy because it won't just be me anymore that has to deal with the worries, fears, and anxiety. My partner has always been reassuring and supportive of me, but now, and I'm probably being irrational and overthinking again, I feel like perhaps he is enabling me. That's really interesting insight, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want to pass on this type of habit, the feeling of anxiety of everything, onto my baby. Any advice would be appreciated. Thank you.
What a good question.
Really
and
good
what
one.
a thoughtful question, because I actually think that the concern is a little bit valid here, actually, because I think but we know that babies can pick up on stress and anxiety from their parents and within their environment. So I think it's fantastic that you're already thinking about this. But before we come to the baby, I'm just thinking about you and anxiety, or you and worrying, and the relationship you have with it. And I think that will be useful to address first before we start thinking about baby and impact of baby and what you do after baby's here. I'm really intrigued by your question or your thought, is my partner enabling me? And I would say to this, if you feel like their reassurance is bringing down your anxiety immediately, like it's creating an immediate buffer or relief for you, and then it can go up again quickly, and then the cycle continues. They offer reassurance, they offer support, the anxiety decreases. Then I probably would say that their reassurance and their support is probably actually reinforcing the anxiety rather than helping it, because that's a typical cycle with anxiety. We feel anxious, we feel stressed, we feel fearful of something, and then we use something to kind of bring that down.
Yeah, we call it an unhelpful behaviour. Like if we're thinking about it in CBT terms, it might not, people can do lots of things. It might not just be reassurance. With anxiety, people might overcompensate. They might stop not doing things they enjoy.
Like avoid.
They might avoid, absolutely. They might turn to food.
Yeah.
Or other substances. So I think the fact that you've been able to pinpoint that you do have an unhelpful behaviour that's keeping this cycle going, and that unhelpful behaviour is maybe like reassurance seeking or checking, and checking we know is a huge part of anxiety, that we get into checking behaviours. I think that's really helpful to you to have that self-awareness.
It's good data to have. And with any kind of anxiety, again, as Ritz was saying, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that approach to anxiety is to help you reduce those kinds of reassurance, checking, avoidance, any kind of behavior that seeks to bring down that anxiety straight away, which in turn you then feel like you can't do without in future. So we would try to reduce those and then eventually, hopefully, eliminate those. So maybe you could start off with, first of all, I wonder what you're worried about generally. What are you anxious about? What are you fearful over? Because that could be really helpful if you can identify the specifics of what anxiety looks like for you, because then that will in turn predicate whether we go into problem solving, whether we go into prioritizing, or whether we go straight in with trying to reduce those kind of reassurance seeking behaviors. So what exactly is making you feel anxious generally? Is there any validity to that? Are some of the things that you're worrying about likely to happen? And if so, could you start to problem solve and start to think strategically, okay, if the worst thing were to happen, what could I do about it? Because we want to confront anxiety. We don't want to run away from it, avoid. We want to confront it. That'd be the first thing.
She mentioned that she's always been an overthinker and it's gotten worse. And often what I tend to see in my clinic room is when somebody is an overthinker, they're trying to prepare for every scenario.
Yeah.
And yes, you know, in some points that's a great skill to have, to be able to come up with, right, if this was to happen, how am I going to cope? And to prepare for that. But actually I think what's underneath that is the ability to tolerate uncertainty.
Yeah.
And it comes back to trusting yourself.
Definitely.
The trust in your ability to cope, that even if you didn't prepare for it. And I think with pregnancy, with birth, and with having a newborn, there is going to be a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And you might have plans, and sometimes they can go to plan and sometimes they don't. But I think when you have that trust in yourself and the recognition that even if it doesn't go to plan, and I don't even know what the other plan's going to be, I'm going to cope.
Yeah.
I'm going to cope. It will be hard, but I will cope.
And that reminds me of like the equation of anxiety. You know, anxiety equals an overestimation of a threat and or under or divided by an underestimation of your ability to deal with that threat. So yeah, it comes back to your sense of, can I cope when I face myself, when I find myself in an uncertain situation? Do I have the resources to be able to cope? And so building up that sense of trust, like you say, Ritz, is going to be so important.
And if your gut reaction says, no, you won't, so that's why you have to prepare, then start to look at things back, start to go back.
Like look for evidence?
Yeah, look for evidence of where you have coped in the past.
Yeah.
And I would just start writing that down in a journal, somewhere that you can keep coming back to, because then on a neuroscientific level, what you need to start doing is building up those neurons in your brain, start firing them to start recognizing, even though my brain's telling me I can't cope, actually, if I keep telling myself using repetition that I can because I've coped doing this, 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 and this, eventually that's going to become stronger in your brain.
Definitely. And that's something that you can do on your own without the need for an external person to do this for you, which again will in turn just foster that sense of self-trust within you that, no, I can do this. I really can do this. What about when the baby is here? Because we've already identified that stress or anxiety can be picked up, can be felt by children, because they're literally like sponges, aren't they?
They are. And there's also a lot of research out there that says that you know, in those early years, the child-parent relationship is so important, and emotions are contagious. So all emotions are contagious. You know, happiness is contagious, but also things like stress and anxiety are also contagious. Now, that's not to say that, again, you have to prepare to never be stressed in front of your baby and to never feel anxiety, because that's very unrealistic and unhuman as well. You're having a human-to-human contact with this baby that's about to be born. My advice to that would be, what your baby is going to learn from you is how you respond to your stress and to your anxiety, how you cope with it. So that's the gift that you can give them, is teaching them, when mummy is stressed, this is what mummy aims to do. She might not always do it, but this is what she aims to do. And that's how they're going to learn, is through your behaviours and what you're doing.
I really sorry to interrupt you. I really like that reframe. Like here, I know you've presented it as a dilemma and a problem, but actually here's an invitation to reframe it as a gift that you're going to give them. I love that.
I think it is, because it's a really exciting time. Like, you have this new being that you are going to have so much influence over. And I think as you are being very, very thoughtful, I think when you start to give it thought, you are gifting them things that cannot be bought.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that, Ritz. So yeah, how you manage and how you respond to your anxiety will be so key. So one of the things that we would probably suggest, firstly, is mindful breathing, mindfulness techniques, because that doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to like gather resources from anywhere. It's literally you and your breath, or you and your mind, or your imagination.
Absolutely. And there's, again, you don't even have to pay for anything to do that. There's so much out there.
So many resources.
Yeah, on YouTube and just the internet. You'll find so much. And I would start that now.
Yeah.
Like, don't wait. You start, if you're not already doing mindfulness, start to implement that into your life right now. So again, it's becoming, you're training your brain for it to become much more natural to you, rather than this is this thing I do when I get stressed. Actually, I'm just going to keep anchoring and checking in with myself through breathing when I feel, my brain spiraling and my thoughts spiraling. And with anxiety, the narrative you're telling yourself in your head is such a spiral that often it can take you to quite a complex and dark place, that people often think that the way to get out of it has to be complex. And so when, like, the number one treatment, like mindfulness is suggested, it does get buffed away. So if you find yourself having that reaction of, that's way too simple, how's my breath going to help me? Firstly, that's normal to have that reaction, but I would still invite you to just give it a go and notice, like, before you did it, rate your anxiety, what number was it? And then after you do it, rate it again. Has it come down? And if it has, well, wow, you did that. You were able to get it down.
Yeah. And as much as you can, I would really recommend postponing your worry as well, because you really want to be present in the moment with your child, don't you? So I don't think this is the easiest thing to do as a new parent, but if you can, postpone your worry. So decide a time when is the perfect time for you to worry as much as you want to. That could be when your partner is around, when the baby is asleep, when you're having a bath. And it's time for you to think about everything that you kind of pushed to one side and said, even though this thought has entered my mind, I'm going to leave it until this specific time to think about it. But the trick is, when you get to that worry time, don't just worry, don't just ruminate, but actually strategically problem solve, prioritize, challenge your negative thoughts, and try to bring your rational brain into it as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because I think the other side of that is, and I like that you've said that, like, be strategic with it, because sometimes what people might say as well is that when you get to that worry time, you realise it's not a worry at all. But then if it is still a worry, I like that. Like, be strategic then with that worry.
Yeah, because I think that our emotions sometimes are trying to tell us something. What they're trying to tell us sometimes isn't always true, but I think it's still wise to pay heed to it. And to say, okay, what is my worry trying to tell me right now? Is it trying to tell me that I'm fatigued, and when I'm really tired, I'm less likely to cope? Is it trying to tell me that I need extra hands? What is it trying to tell you?
Yeah.
And then work with it from then on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all I have. Did you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't think I do. I feel like it's been a really fruitful one. I feel like I don't know if I talked really quickly. Maybe I was quite excited.
I think you're all right.
But I think you're showing a lot of self-awareness, and that's always the first step.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
you definitely can cope because you're showing self-awareness. And I think we've given you lots to think about
Yeah.
with it. And
Yeah.
don't do it all at once. Take your time with it. But yeah.
You're more resilient than you know.
Yeah.
And it sounds like on some level you do have that awareness, because when your partner reassures you, you feel a lot better. But I guess now it's time to start believing that. You know, how many times can you hear something before you decide to actually take it in and hold on to it? It takes intentional effort, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah. And that's the thing with anxiety, it's being intentional.
Yeah.
Because just because you think something doesn't make it true. And so when you become more intentional about the thoughts that you're going to act on, that's what's going to give you that control back to start tolerating the uncertainty.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your dilemma.
Thank you. It was an interesting one. And join us for part 2 and the second dilemma.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Dr. Ritz.
And Dr. Vicky.
Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on our social media channels.